I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. Welcome and thank you for joining. Hello, Debbie. You were the first I noticed in the chat, and then also Chris. Welcome, welcome. Today, I wanted to just briefly touch on some cases that have been in my feed this past week. We're going to talk about Donna Adelson updates, also missing teens in general, including just briefly touching on the case out of California. So trigger warnings for that one, but we're not going to get into the details or the specifics of that one. And then we are also going to chat about my EMDR training. So I recently finished EMDR training, and I'll be able to start using this intervention for clients that it may be a good fit for, and I'm really excited about that. So we're going to include that at the end. If y'all have any cases that y'all are following, please let me know. I have links because I'm not going into detail on these cases, but where I got my information, I have more detailed links in the description if you would like to dive into these a little bit more. There is a case, oh my gosh, Sarah Hartsfield. Ooh, Gossip Rumor and Innuendo covered that one. Um, uh, and I believe Paul from Reporting Live from My Sofa, he is going to be covering that one today. A woman, after the death of her fifth husband, all of a sudden there's this path and trail of deceased people and fires and odd behavior that may all be tied back to her. And so I will be keeping an eye on that case. I believe that trial starts this coming week. And so we will see. It is I need a picture that's showing all, because like I said, this was husband number 5 that was deceased, but then that opened a can of worms to all of these other past things. And it was very, very odd case. So I'm keeping my eyes on that one. We're going to start with Donna Adelson. So she filed a motion for a new trial, and that's not even an appeal. So a lot of defendants appeal their conviction if they are convicted. She filed a motion for a new trial and listed the basis. Judge Everett provided a very detailed response of why he did not feel that she was entitled to a new trial. And so her case will start the appeals process. And the defense was not granted because they requested to talk with the jurors. And because one of the things was the defense said that one of the jurors' videos was no longer public, but that video is still public. And all she mentioned was that she was on a jury. She didn't say which jury. She didn't give out any information that was against the rules. And so the judge did not grant them a chance to sit down and talk to the jurors. I know sometimes it can be anxiety provoking for jurors to come forward, and I love it. So I like hearing the behind the scenes of what happens behind the scenes in the jury room. I get why a lot of juries don't, because if they say anything, the defense, they can try to say like, oh, they said they were looking at her body language. And what juror doesn't look at body language? What juror doesn't glance over at the defendant? And so a lot of the issues in that original motion, Judge Everett did a phenomenal job summing up why nope, we're not going there. I watched Lawyer Lee cover it, and I have a link to her full video if y'all want to dive in a little deeper on that one. So we're going to start with the lighter case, maybe. Well, should we start with the lighter one or the heavy one? So first we will start, there was a missing teen out of Florida. And so good news, he's been found safe. Everything was fine. But he sent a text message to his parents saying that he had been abducted by 4 Hispanic men in a white van. Well, nowadays there is in less than 24 hours, They were able to find surveillance video of him in Walmart purchasing a bike before his car was found without anything there, and a lot of things in the story didn't make sense. I have a link to that, because Law and Crime covered that one. I have a link to their full coverage down in the description, but it's really troubling because sometimes there are missing teens that are legit missing and that are, um, that have run away, and sometimes the police might almost minimize like, "Ah, you're like, is this true? Is this really what's going on?" This was a case that was taken very seriously from the start, and he has been found safe. They may look at pressing charges against him because what he did, reporting a false crime, that is illegal. And so there is a potential that he could face some potential charges. This comes out of Marion County, and then I think it's called the Uvalde because there were organizations that devoted money to trying to find him. And the foundation, it's called Uvalde Foundation for Kids. They may they may seek like they might they may pursue charges against the teen after, if it is confirmed that the report was intentionally false. So, even on Law and Crime, a private investigator said there could have been some coercion from a third party, like there could have been something else nefarious involved, and so we don't know. But definitely keeping an eye on that. That was very very troubling. Welcome, welcome to everyone in the chat. Um, I'm not sure what the end game was, so I'm not sure. I don't love it when people create a false story and then they play into a stereotype. And what I mean by that, I'm reminded of a white woman years ago that said that a black man had abducted her children or child. It was child or children. And it turned out like she had done it herself. It was a false report. There was no there was no black man involved. At the time, the report of four Hispanic men in a white van, if I'm sure that if the police are looking for that, it could make people in that community a little bit afraid. I do not know why this individual did this. I'm just saying that those types of false reports, it can play into a bias. It can play in to those marginalized communities now having some fear. Yes, Susan Smith. She was the one that I was thinking of that made that false report, and it turned out to not be true at all. She had done the crime. And because there was a period of time where the police believed her and they're out here looking for a black man that matches that description, and it's just not true. It's just not true. And so that's where it's it's really really troubling when people create those false narratives and then on top of that they play into people's bias. That's just how I feel about it. And that leads us into Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She is a 14-year-old. So she was 14, they believe, like when she was deceased because her 15th birthday came after. So by the time her body was recovered, she was 15 years old. And it looks like she had run away from home and she from like it there seems to be some evidence that she was living with this rapper. We do not know if he was involved at all. I've seen hidden true crimes coverage of this. I've also seen uh Grizzly True Crimes coverage, and I've seen a few other people's coverage as well. There is some false information that like so there it is not true. So if anybody saw a viral post about any like infant remains, that is false. And I hate with cases like this where people are trying to look for cues, clues. People are trying to stay abreast on what's true and what's not. When there's false information out there, it just creates more and more problems. And so it is not true. They still haven't released a cause of death yet. And a lot of people have a lot of different theories. I do not know. My heart breaks for her family because they did report her missing. They may have even had I don't know if they knew where she was or who she was with. I've worked with teens in the past where when the teen went missing, the family had a general idea of who they were with, and they would have to work with law enforcement for how do they navigate those situations. It is a very, very heartbreaking case. And yeah, there are details about it that are just very troubling, and so I am gonna keep an eye on it, and I am going to watch this case. If anyone is arrested, and because I do want justice for Celeste and her family. I don't know if the police could, if they find any evidence of, um any type of a romantic relationship, if there could, because she was 14. I don't know if any legal charges or if anything can be pressed in that case, or if there are any legal charges that could be filed. I'm sure the police have requested cell phones. I'm sure that they are looking at digital evidence, and people have been combing through past live streams of the rapper, and people have been looking into things, and people have been probably passing that information on to the authorities. But it is very, very sad. Lisa mentioned one of the biggest issues is the lack of investigation even after the police. So I do think they're navigating it as best they can. So I don't know what's happening, but behind the scenes, I do not know. I do not know what's going on. Um, I've seen a lot of different reports, and there are a lot of different theories, and I just want to be mindful that while the police are doing this investigation, we will see what ends up happening. I think about like Dan Markel. It took years for them to arrest somebody. It took years for them to finally start to prosecute the people higher up in the chain. So in the Dan Markel um murder, they started with the direct individuals, and then they started to work their way out to everyone else. Investigations do take time, and so I just hope that people are patient with the process. We all want justice for Celeste. And I did see the teacher. So a student probably recorded a teacher talking about being her former teacher, and really cautioned kids about social media and engaging in relationships with adults. So it's normal for a child to be like, oh wow, it's really cool that this adult, so I always put the blame on the adult. So the child is always the child. The 14-year-old, the 13-year-old, I always put it, the adults have to do better. The adults have to make good decisions. You can't put that on the child. And so, the good thing in the coverage of this case, I haven't heard any victim blaming with Celeste, which I'm glad about. And once again, my heart truly breaks for her family, and I do hope that they are able to get justice for her. Are there any other cases that you all are following? I will be doing a live coming up on Tuesday. I will be streaming Tuesday about 6 p.m. is normally my Tuesday stream. Lisa mentioned based on comments from lawyers and police investigators, I don't believe they can link him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, Lisa. We'll see what happens with this case. This is also a September is, and there's a word I can't say here on YouTube. So even though I'm a licensed mental health professional, YouTube knows that I'm licensed and that education on this topic is incredibly important. If I say the word, it'll impact the video. So I have to use the word self unalive instead. So some people have very dark thoughts when they are feeling depressed, when they're feeling disconnected or lonely. And so continue or the semicolon is a common thing that people that are looking for hope, that's a common thing that people do. And so this shirt says, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make my camera stop so that it doesn't go up. There we go. All right. So it says, "Don't let your story end." So this is just I like this sweatshirt. Um, I don't love the fabric. So the fabric ended up not being something that I love. So I'm not gonna put the specific company that I purchased it from. The material is it's a little I don't know like it's very polyester. It's probably gonna make the colors last forever, but I don't love the feel of this, but I really like the message, and, purple and teal are colors that often represent this month, and I did want to talk about perceived burdensomeness, okay? Perceived burdensomeness. They've done research on people that have those really dark thoughts, and the idea that a person is caught is a burden to their friends, family, and society, especially due to an illness, unemployment, or financial dependency, that can often lead to very dark thoughts. And so as a therapist, this is something that I assess for. And with a client, if they are having those thoughts that nobody cares, they're a burden to everybody, nobody would miss them. If people are having those kinds of thoughts, I like to start with them that and say that like I care. Like I would be devastated if something happened to you. So I try to use our therapeutic relationship. I also assess for safety. So in my office, and if anybody does struggle with deep depression, with dark thoughts, you want to make sure you have a therapist that is comfortable monitoring from the lowest level of care needed. And what I mean by that is there's some therapists, the moment somebody kind of mentions they might sometimes think about having those types of thoughts, sometimes that therapist will overreact and be like, "Go to the ER right now." It's like, "Wait a minute, like I had those thoughts a year ago," or I don't know, like, or like it's not the person isn't going to act on them. So, something that's really important to when people are having those types of thoughts is safety planning. And what a safety plan is developing what are some of the triggers, what are some of the things that bring those thoughts up, and then what are some of their resources, what are some of the things that help them from like not act on those thoughts, and who are the people they can call, what can they do. So I've worked with clients that live alone. And something that they've done while we were working on the depression is they went and stayed with family or they got a dog. Just getting a dog, getting something that needed them, that needed them to care for them, that needed for them to, they needed to have a plan for this. Sometimes just doing minor things was really helpful in helping individuals. Um, yeah. And so, Miss Woozy, I just saw your comment that this type of material driving you nuts. And so like that's why I'm like I'm not going to advertise this specific brand. I don't love the material. and I'm not that picky when it comes to clothes, but yeah, it's but I like the colors, I like the message, and I liked the price probably. So yes, and somebody else mentioned that their pets have saved their life more than once. Yes. And so I am the type of therapist that I have worked with people that it wasn't a matter of if they were having these types of thoughts, it was a matter of how strong those thoughts were. And if those thoughts were really strong towards the front of their brain, and if they didn't think they could handle it, we would then look at a higher level of care. If they were engaging in certain behaviors like drinking alcohol. So, one of the worst things you can do with depression or anxiety, in my opinion, is add alcohol because it is a depressant and it can lower inhibitions. So, the things that somebody wouldn't do sober, sometimes substances can kind of alter that. And so I try to work with clients with abstaining from alcohol, especially if they have depression. Um, and then, like I said, we want to identify resources. So, with some clients, if they're having a tough week, because sometimes with those types of thoughts, it's just a roller coaster. Like, it's just, if they just get over that hump, they'll feel better. So, and sometimes just time, like literally, if we did nothing at all, but just like went to sleep and then just woke up the next day, for some people, they would wake up in a different, now, not chipper, happy, joyful, but like not as depressed. And so there is a podcast called 10% Happier. And I like the idea because with some of my clients, it's not our goal isn't happy. Our goal isn't them being chipper. Our goal is them just being a little less depressed. So today, the depression is a 7 out of 10, 10 being the most it could possibly be. What does a 5 look like? What does a 6 look like? Like we're just trying to move it slowly. And that often that can be helpful. I'm going to parent for a moment. Do you need some help with something? Do you need me to log in? Are you good? Are you good? Okay, good. All right. I also like to break the stigma that talking about these things doesn't make it more likely that somebody will act. So, to me, talking about these topics and kind of normalizing that, hey, a lot of people have gotten to a point where they've had dark thoughts. I'll never forget when my student loans, I was unemployed after graduating with my doctorate. So I was Dr. Barry, well, Dr. Turner, but I was a doctor and unemployed. And I had a 200, and I had almost $200,000 of student loans. And so it was difficult to drive over bridges. It just was. But I was in a financial spot. But finding a job was what was helpful. Like finding a job was what helped, make those thoughts, go away and not be an issue. And so sometimes normalizing like, hey, you're in a difficult situation and I understand why you're having these thoughts. Let's talk about how you do still have goals. So thankfully, I never acted on those thoughts because I wouldn't be here talking to y'all now. Like there was a plan, there were more things in life. And so sometimes building in some hope for people, helping people look past their nose, which especially for trauma survivors can be really hard. My clients that have, especially CPTSD, clients that have complex trauma, that have just been through a lot already and they've kind of lost hope, sometimes that can be really difficult. And I am so glad this leads us right into talking about my EMDR training. So, EMDR is a type of treatment. It's called eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I'm going to share a page. Here we go, because it's EMDRIA is a nationally recognized training and education center. The training that I did was EMDRIA approved. And this is where, before I was trained myself, if I was looking for an EMDR trained therapist, I would go here to try to find somebody. Sometimes their site is a little difficult. Okay, find an EMDR therapist. And then, okay, I'm going to agree to that. And then if I want to search by location, and then a directory of therapists. And so this was my trainer, Dr. Jerome was the individual that I did my training with. We actually met on internship at Virginia Treatment Center for Children. And I was able to go through this process. She is approved, and this was very close to my office location. And so this was a really cool experience. But this has individuals that are IMDRIA certified, which means they've done the additional work of getting certified. So there's some additional consultation hours that people have to do to be certified. And then approved consultants mean that they help train other people. All right. So that is what that means. IMDRIA certified just means that they did a few extra trainings, an additional supervision, and additional hours. And then individuals that did not do that certification, I just like helping people explain like what all of this means. So what is EMDR? All right. So EMDR is, once again, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It can be done virtually or in person. As I'm learning, as I'm implementing what I've learned, because I've already completed the training. So as I'm implementing what I've learned, I am going to start using it mostly in person. And I have some clients that have anger issues, that have anxiety, that have histories of trauma. And we are going to use this method to um, to help them slay their dragon. What do I mean by slay the dragon? So, within therapy, within counseling, there are treatment modalities and there are ways to conceptualize, to think about a client's problem. And the way that I was trained in this training to think about the client's problem is that for my clients that are a good candidate for this, a situation happens, they get mad at their spouse. And anyone would get upset, like in that situation, anyone would get mad at their spouse. But my client, their reaction might be this big. They're having a big reaction to this situation because of other stuff in their life. So, what we're going to go back and we're going to process through some of that earlier stuff so that the current situation isn't as triggering. With any treatment, people can get worse before they get better. And so that's where I'm only going to use this with individuals that are stable, that are in a place that are prepared and ready to do this work. And then I will check in with them on a regular basis because if we need to pause and if we need to go back and do more preparation work, we can, because EMDR has 8 phases. Phase 1 is just history taking, and phase 2 is preparing, fence building, getting them ready for the next phase. Phase 3 through 8, that's where the reprocessing happens. And so I'm really excited to add this to my repertoire. So some people with EMDR, you can use, because the biggest thing is that it's bilateral, that it goes from side to side. And with the eye movements, there's something about following and tracking the eyes. They've done research as you're thinking about the negative stressful event with a trained therapist. You don't do this on your own. So with the trained therapist doing this work, it can help process thoughts, memories, sensations. It can kind of help integrate the negative event because stressful events normally aren't filed away neatly, like what I ate for lunch today, because I didn't eat breakfast. So I'll use what I ate for lunch today. So a very stressful event from childhood that's not filed away neatly. With EMDR, the therapist has to receive it themselves. So I over 4 different days, I received where I was the client and one of the other therapists was like in a therapist role, and I processed through minor. So it wasn't anything like, it wasn't like a major trauma. It wasn't like, the worst thing that ever happened. I was able to process through some minor things to get what the client experience is like. And let me tell y'all, EMDR, it did things. So I've done therapy before. Okay. I've had 3 different therapists. 2 of them were good. One of them I ghosted. Don't ghost your therapist, but like, don't do what Dr. Barry does. Do what I say. Ghosted means I didn't schedule a follow-up appointment. I just didn't go back. I disappeared. but not in real life. Only on that therapist's schedule. I disappeared. So, with my experience of being the client, I tried it using the eye movements, and then also there were they're called tappers. There were these 2 little vibrating, um, they were they were probably about this big. It was something that I could hold on to, and it would go from left to right, left to right, left to right. And, I actually like the eye movements better than the tappers. Some people like the physical grounding of the tappers better. And so, somebody mentioned when I had my first, EMDR session, I had heavy doubts. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, sometimes you can have physical, you mentioned having, like, physical things that happened after. Yeah. So during the session for me, I would feel stuff come up. I didn't A lot of people feel like they're going to vomit, or they might feel like they might have a body sensation. Um, for me, I think I burped twice. So I received 4 different sessions of EMDR, and twice, like, I felt something physically come up. It was a really cool experience, really, really cool. And I will continue to share, information about my experience with this. Let me go down. Uh, and so the eye movements, what it is um you're doing something while you process the memory. And some people, especially with kids, they'll use like a cush ball, and the kids will watch the cush ball go from side to side. And it's more about the dual attention versus like actually moving your eyes. And because the goal in this treatment is that a client doesn't start dissociating, or that they're not like so disconnected or so overwhelmed by the memory that they can't handle it. So if at any point I'm doing this with a client and they start to get too overwhelmed, too activated, I'll check in with them to see where they are, if they would like to pause, if we need to contain that memory for today, or do we need to do some grounding, some safe place visualization before continuing. Because I don't want them, so this isn't exposure therapy where I'm like throwing them in the deep end so that they can learn how to swim. I view this as more of like a gradual supportive service where I want my clients to be grounded throughout the experience. That's how I see it. The cool thing about EMDR for me also was that I'm very picky when it comes to therapists, when it comes to who I work with. And there are certain things. So, like, if I'm going to process through any past racial trauma or anything like that, I would be picky about the provider that I chose to do that type of work with. But for some of my childhood stuff, with EMDR, I almost feel like any person that was trained, I feel like I would be able to do it with them. Um, uh, because there were a few people in the training that I just naturally connected with, and some other people where it wasn't that there was nothing wrong with the other individuals, but it didn't matter who was my therapist. I was still able to work through. My brain was able to do the work. So the therapist is coaching the client in doing the work. The client in their brain is the one doing most of the work with EMDR. And so Lisa, like it might not be for everybody. And for a lot of my clients with complex trauma, we're going to start with a small, like, we're not going to start with the biggest possible thing. To like, we're gonna have a what they call a test run. We're going to try out something that's kind of upsetting, but isn't the worst thing ever, just so they can have the experience and work through it. With EMDR, you identify a negative cognition, something that you believe about yourself because of the experience that you went through. And by the end of it, you're able to identify a more positive thought, something that you would prefer to believe about yourself based on this situation. And one of the examples that comes to mind is if somebody is in a car accident and it wasn't their fault, the thought that they believe about themselves might be, "I'm not safe." Because every time they get back in a car, that feeling of "I'm not safe" is there. And something that they might prefer to believe is, "I can control what I can," or, um I don't know, like there might be something else that the person prefers to believe. And EMDR is just a different way of getting there. I've also done cognitive behavior therapy. I've been trained in dialectical behavior therapy, which is a skills-based treatment. Um, yeah. Hey, Sarah. Yeah. Systematic desensitization. So and with EMDR, it's more of a reprocessing. You're like reprocessing in those small bites. It's super cool. I really, really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. And so, Lisa, I'm glad that you put the blame on the people that caused the harm. Yeah, that's where it belongs. That is absolutely where it belongs. And so, I just know that I have some people that I work with that I think this will be a very helpful addition to what we're already doing in therapy. And I'm even going to try it with a few of the kiddos that I work with. Yes. The goal is that it kind of rewires. And it's cool, McPigeon, that you prefer CBT. So to me, cognitive behavior therapy can sometimes lack validation. So I like, because let's say I have an irrational thought about myself. But that thought might be rooted in a negative event, and there might be a reason why I believe this about myself. And for me, just it's just like I'm an analytical person. I would want to work through the why. And with CBT, you do identify the thoughts that confirm the belief. You identify alternative thoughts. The way that you work through it can be helpful, but I like that DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, adds mindfulness, adds being in this moment. I like radical acceptance. There are some things that I have to add to make CBT work for me. And also cognitive behavior therapy, sometimes it's not culturally sensitive. And so I also just add in, because if cultural beliefs are a part of this negative thought, sometimes we have to address it. And so I like doing that. Let me know if there are any cases that y'all are following, that you all are taking a look at. Dr. Barry, did you also tell your clients about creating a safe place? Yes. So with every client, that is the prep work. We are creating a safe place. And I've had some people struggle with the safe place activity. And so now I have some additional tools of them maybe drawing a safe place, or me having some images that they can maybe choose from, to just kind of help people create a safe place in their mind. Or I might start with creating a safe place for somebody else that then, but yeah. So, um, but we're going to do safe place work, and then we're also going to do attachment work as well. Because sometimes, especially for complex trauma, laying that foundation of secure attachment can often be helpful, with EMDR being more helpful down the road. Because sometimes clients can get stuck in certain patterns and certain beliefs if you haven't done some of that attachment work. Curiously, how do you deal with patients who have trauma related to other mental health professionals? So, number one, so I have worked with people that have been harmed by mental health professionals in the past, two mental health professionals that went to jail. I've been doing this work since 2010, so that's a long time. Um, so I have very clear boundaries in my session, and I try to create safety with my clients. Um, uh, I don't use touch in therapy, because I have a lot of clients that could be a trigger, or also I just want to protect myself, my boundaries. I have a very big like personal space. Like I really like my space. And so the first thing we do is we create safety. I've worked with some kids that have like been discharged from other therapists because they didn't talk or because they didn't engage in therapy or treatment. And with those clients, what they sometimes learn is that, hey, if I don't do anything, I don't have to come. like I could just sit here and I don't have to come. So with those clients, I get very creative, and sometimes we might watch sometimes we might start with funny videos where I'm connecting and building rapport as long as they're appropriate. I'm like, hey, is this appropriate for therapy? We might build rapport using music. And so, Sarah, I have mentioned in past videos, so I do side hugs at the end of session if clients ask. Very few. I don't have a ton of clients. I probably haven't hugged a client in about, it's been months, I think. Like it's been a while. Yeah. It's just I don't have a lot of clients that ask for it. And I've never given a client a hug every session. Like, no, like that's just no. Sometimes clients have had very difficult sessions, and I have a big sloth. His name is Steve. I have my and if they need to name him something else, because if Steve is triggering for them, but he's my emotional support sloth, I will let clients hug and like hold Steve if they need to. But yeah, I don't do that. So one of the first things I do with clients that have had a bad experience with other people is, number one, I try to validate and understand kind of what they went through and then how I'm different. Because if somebody's bad experience that they had is that I don't know, I'm trying to think of something I do that if a client didn't like it, they probably wouldn't be a good fit for my services. But I've had some clients where the therapist canceled a lot, or they left the practice unexpectedly, or for all these different reasons. I try to be as consistent as I can with clients. I am every now and then I will double book people, and I feel bad about it. Like, uh, um, but that's rare. I rarely have to cancel sessions. Every now and then something will come up, but that's kind of how I handle it. Yes, emotional support sloth, and he's weighted. Lisa, Steve, he is weighted. I absolutely love him. He's at my work office. I also love fidgets, so I keep fidgets in my office. I can't believe I don't have one. Oh, I do. See, I always have fidgets within, like, arm's reach. It's the ADHD, but other things too. But yeah, I love a fidget. Yeah, curiously, thank you for asking. And, if it's something that, the client wants to report, then I would support the client through that process. The two therapists that went to jail, I met with the client after the legal process had already started. Yeah. Uh, so, I used to supervise other counselors, and I did have to let people go if they were lying about their hours, or if they did things that were against our company's policy. Um, and that was always a decision that was made with HR and our chief operating officer when I was working for another agency. I work for myself. And that's part of the reason why I like that's part of the reason why I'm very picky about somebody else working for me. I don't Because I would be so upset if somebody under my practice, if they did something bad. I would be so mad. I have a very high standard for, like, what therapists should and shouldn't do. I just, I don't I I've worked with other people, but I don't have anybody that works for me. I have people that I refer clients to if I can't work with them, but yeah. I'm very picky. And supervising other people is parenting, okay? So I felt like my staff's mother or parent. Right? So I was and I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed aspects of it, but then I did not enjoy tracking people down for paperwork and making sure people were at meetings and having to meet with people all the time. I had this mug. I don't know, it must be at my other office. It was something um, like, all of us is dumber than none of us. Like, it's just like, "Hey, like, why are we meeting? Like, why do we have to meet to talk about the last meeting?" Like, I always tried to make my meetings purposeful, and I didn't hold them for the full hour if we were done after 45 minutes. Like, it just is, and so yeah. And, once a person has been let down by a prior therapist, it can make it hard to trust again. I do psychological testing, and sometimes people will connect with me during testing, and then they'll be like, I want you to be my therapist. If I have openings, we can talk about it. If I don't have openings, I have to refer them to somebody else. And hey, I'm not the right fit for everybody for everybody either. Debbie, supervision, oh my god, I used to be an in-home supervisor where the clinicians were on call 24/7, which meant me as the supervisor, I'm on call 24/7. Because if my clinician got a call at 9 p.m., they would have to talk with the family, and then they would have to notify me that a crisis happened because they're working under my license. So I was supervising non-licensed clinicians. We call them qualified mental health professionals, or they were residents. They were residents in counseling or residents in social work, where they were working towards a license, but they were working under somebody else's license. And when I was an in-home supervisor, I I didn't mind my clinicians calling me because I wanted to know and I wanted to support them, but I started to hate my phone. And so for my own work-life balance, I went from being an in-home supervisor to a school-based coordinator, where come 3 p.m., school is over, and if something comes up, it's somebody else's problem. It's not mine. So I was able to, like, not be on call after 3 p.m., which was beautiful. Um, every now and then we would have a rare situation of an after school emergency, but that was rare. That was very, very rare. And when COVID happened and schools closed, that's when I launched my private practice because they would have let me stay at the company and be the in-home director, but I was like, I don't want to direct. No, it's time for me to launch my own practice, and that's been amazing. And so I enjoy it. Thank y'all for the questions. If y'all have any additional questions for me, let me know. I am officially working on my second book. I'm looking at going through a publisher this time, and I'm writing it with a friend. And I will continue to drop more and more information as I can. But as that process gets, but two times a week going live, that should be completely fine. I don't think I'll run into any problems. But I'm really excited. The book is going to be on um, coping with grief and loss. So super, super excited about that. And I am going to be working on that with my friend. And so we're going to take it to the publisher once we're ready to submit our book proposal. So that'll probably be in the next month. And then once the writing process starts, that might be something that I might do for members only. I might have some like jam sessions where I'm writing and y'all can we can body double. Y'all can clean something or something, and we might listen to my audiobook or something. Lisa, I think I have a video on self-publishing. Let me find it. Because self-publishing was how I published my first book. It was super easy. I went through KDP, which is like Amazon. I used my own I what's that? My own number. IBN, IS, whatever. I purchased my own number to use because I also self-publish. There's a company that would print books. If I didn't wanna use Amazon, 'cause there was another company that would print books. If you need the name of it, let me know. Self-publish. Alright, yes. So you want to self-publish. So me and my mom did a podcast episode on self-publishing. Yes, ISBN, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. And so far I have 1 book out, and then I am going to work on book number 2. So, and then Lisa, if you have questions, you can put any questions you have in that video, and then I will either do a short to answer any questions that you have. Welcome, welcome to everybody. And so let me know if y'all have any other questions. Let me know what cases y'all are following. That it's Sarah Hartsfield. That case is what? And I don't know what's going to come up in this trial because husband number five's death, I don't know what will happen. So I only do testing in person, and I can only work with people in the state of Virginia. So if you are in the state of Virginia and you are looking for psychological testing, my my practice is Four Rivers Psychological Services, but I am not accepting new clients for outpatient therapy. That's Sarah Grace Patrick. I have been following that one. Does she have any trial stuff this week, Sarah? Because she's the one that is charged with unaliving her mother and stepfather. And I saw the clips from the eulogy, and that's where I don't know. And a lot of people have a lot of mixed emotions. I do think they're going to drag the mother because I think Sarah's mother. Um, I think there are some dynamics in this where they might try to blame the victims a little, but we will see. Uh, oh, so my mom is gonna listen to Kamala's book first. So I do audiobooks, okay? The way my brain works, I cannot spend an hour just like looking. So I do audiobooks. And so and my mom and we normally do Audible together. So I think she's gonna listen first, and then I will check it out. It's my understanding, I think it's 107 days. It's my understanding it's written like a journal where Kamala goes through like each day. Nishay, let me know if you have any questions about anything in the book or anything specific that you would like for me to cover. But yeah. Ooh, so been covering the disappearance of Maya Millette. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so maybe Sarah might be in October. So I will and we're almost to October this week. I don't know where the months are going. It is wow. Um so there is a video going around of a woman, I think it might be in Florida. I might be wrong, but she was caught stealing from Target, and during her court appearance you can almost tell that she seems to have some intellectual deficits. She just presents a lot younger, and a lot of people were upset that she didn't have a guardian. And a lot of people, I think, were making assumptions about her ability based on how she was talking and how she was navigating that situation. And not every person has to have a legal guardian. So I have clients that might have an intellectual disability or different diagnoses, and as long as they're able to manage things with support, sometimes all the way on their own, we don't always fight for them to have a guardian. Sometimes we do try to have a parent or a family member be able to have like uh medical power of attorney where they can make appointments on their behalf or where they can call and get information for them. But not every just because somebody has an intellectual disability does not necessarily mean that the individual has to have a guardian. And so, um, yeah, this month has just went so fast, so fast. Uh, Lisa, I don't know if she writes about her relationship with her dad in the book. I know she was honest about how she felt um, about Joe Biden in the book, and so I think there's some tea there, and I will listen to it eventually, but let me know if y'all have any specific questions. And thank you to Deacon Fatal. 2 years. What? Being a member for 2 years. I can't that is wow. So thank you, thank you. Um, my current book read is, A Life of Meaning. Ooh. Ooh, Christina, how is that going? That sounds really interesting. A Life of Meaning by James Hollis. I think I've heard of Dr. Hollis before, but not the other because I think there's one Hollis. I think it was that her name. I think there was one that she got into some trouble for taking other people's ideas. It's not him. I think it was a different lady. That book sounds really, really interesting. Woo. Yeah. You'll have to let me know how that goes. Oh my gosh, curiously. So maybe we'll talk about this on Tuesday. Maybe we'll talk about church hurt. We'll talk about the fake rapture and then also because I followed the whole mahogany. There was like a lady that got like kicked out of the praise team in the middle of service. I think she was fired or like they said they were no longer going to pay the praise team before it, but there was this whole thing that ended up going viral. And then also talking about that pastor that had the call center and he's now facing federal he was, it seems like it was a cult because people were working at the call center, but they weren't getting paid. They were forced to apply for government aid and give that aid to the church. If they didn't raise enough money each day, they would have severe punishments. And so, I maybe on Tuesday we'll cover a little bit of that. All right. Um, Let me look at Curious Lee's question about AI psychosis. Maybe that was a different question. So I have talked about AI psychosis. I heard there was a lawyer that got in trouble, I think fined $10,000 in California. I saw Legal Bites. Yes, I saw Legal Bites cover that one where a lawyer was fined $10,000 for using AI to write a brief. And the AI came up with 23 quotes and 21 of the quotes or citations were hallucinations, were made up. And so for the first time, the court fined the person. I don't know if they're going to do a RICO case. I know they are treating it. Let me see what he's been. I'll have to look up the details on this one. I don't think it's RICO, but it's very cult like because if anybody disagreed with the teachings, you had to cut them off and there are some survivors of this group that were able to get free from it and are now talking. And it is very troubling, including a former singer that was dating the head guy. And when she would speak out against him, people just thought she was bitter and scorned. She wasn't. So I appreciate you all. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and have a great week. I will see y'all on Tuesday around 6 p.m. I hope y'all have a good one. Bye.